Hi, I'm Nathan Herrington, owner of Nathan Herrington Coaching. Today, we're going to talk about 3 simple ways to develop your emotional intelligence. So, why emotional intelligence? It's such a buzzword these days, especially in relationship to leadership. However, I want to discuss it in the context of being a human being in all aspects. First of all, emotional intelligence can be defined as your ability to understand and influence your own emotions and how they impact your behavior, as well as how your emotions and behavior affect others. Having this understanding can improve your effectiveness, your overall well-being and happiness, and the quality of your relationships. People with higher emotional intelligence tend to be able to create an experience of connection and make people feel safe, supported, and empowered. These are just some of the reasons why emotional intelligence is so crucial. Now, I want to share 3 simple ways to develop and improve your emotional intelligence. These methods might seem very simple to our intellectual minds, but don't let that simplicity deceive you. Look, we have a tendency to intellectualize emotional intelligence, but EQ exists distinct from intellectual intelligence. See, knowing about emotional intelligence and being able to talk about it doesn't mean that you have it. The practices and skills involved are about emotional, not intellectual intelligence. Okay, so here's the first tip. First is body-based meditation. Now let me say, if you have any resistance to the word meditation, maybe because of its spiritual connotations, understand that while meditation does have roots in spiritual teachings, its benefits are accessible to everyone, regardless of their spiritual beliefs. Body-based meditation involves simply sitting still and bringing your awareness to different parts of your body. This can consist of a simple body scan from the tips of your toes all the way up to the top of your head. This practice helps you become attuned to the sensations within your body, such as warmth or numbness or different temperatures inside your body or on your skin. So why does this matter? Well, this all circles back to distinguishing emotional intelligence from just being book smart. Often, especially here in the West, we tend to think of our emotions as something that takes place in our minds. But if you stop and really think about it, when you get angry, for instance, doesn't your heart start racing? Your face gets warm? There's a whole bunch of stuff happening in your physical body with every emotion that you feel. And then if you didn't feel anything in your body, if your heart didn't race or your palms didn't get sweaty, that wouldn't really be feeling an emotion, would it? It'd just be like you're talking to yourself inside your head, right? Like thoughts, which sure is a part of an emotional experience, and the awareness of your thoughts, that does help you develop your EQ, like catching yourself saying to yourself and like what you're saying to yourself and being able to change up that internal dialogue. But the thing is, an emotion isn't really an emotion without the full body experience. Now here's something interesting. When you start getting into practices like body-based meditation, very frequently you'll begin to notice in the day-to-day living of your life the physical side of your emotions before your brain, before you consciously become aware of what it is that you're actually feeling. Here's a personal example. There are many times in my day when I notice my heart rate picking up a little bit and some tightness in my chest. And suddenly I'm like, oh, wait a sec, what's going on here? I'm feeling a little bit anxious. And that's before I am even consciously aware of what's bugging me. It's the sensation, that physical change that clues me in. Then my rational brain kicks in and I start to get curious about and figure out like, okay, what's this about? What's making me anxious? Like, maybe I've got a meeting coming up and subconsciously I'm stressing about it. So what am I stressing about? When I recognize that, then I can get into action. Maybe shift my mindset or clarify the agenda and what I want to get out of that upcoming meeting. So all of this to say, our bodies are key players in the game of emotions, which is why connecting with your body is my first tip. It's not about living from just the neck up. It's about tuning into the whole you. Again, this practice is essential, not just because it helps recognize that emotions, it's essential because it helps us recognize that emotions are not just mental experiences, but full body experiences. By becoming aware of your body, you can start to notice the physical sensations of emotions before you've even become aware of the emotion itself. Okay, so the second tip and the second way to develop emotional intelligence is by naming your emotions. Again, it's very simple, but this practice allows you to create a different relationship with your emotions by giving language to them, and then being able to understand them and process them and think both critically and compassionately about them. People with a rich vocabulary to describe their feelings tend to be more resilient. There's this incredible work by Lisa Feldman Barrett, who is a neuroscience professor, who's done some fascinating work in this field. She's introduced this concept called emotional granularity, which is basically a way of saying that the more precisely we describe our emotions, the better we can manage them. She builds a really powerful case for that having the right words gives us a better handle on our feelings, making us more resilient and adept at navigating our emotional world. Here's why that's a game changer. Imagine you're feeling off, but all you can say is, I'm feeling bad, or I'm stressed. See, those are pretty vague, right? According to Barrett, people who can pinpoint their emotions with more specific terms, saying, for example, I'm feeling apprehensive about my presentation tomorrow, or I'm exhilarated by this challenge, tend to cope better. They're not just stewing in a vague soup of bad vibes. They understand what's stirring the pot and can deal with it directly. And this ties back to what I was saying about noticing your body sensations and emotions. When my heart rate goes up and I start feeling anxious, if I can name that anxiety with a greater degree of specificity, like, I'm, like I said, feeling apprehensive. It's like a specific flavor of anxiety, apprehension about that meeting coming up. Just by naming that, I've already taken a step towards managing it. It's not some shadowy figure in my mind anymore. It's a known entity that I can then address. Barrett's research really hammers home how crucial it is to not only be in tune with our bodies, but also to enrich our emotional vocabulary. It's like being a detective of your own mind, identifying and naming emotions so you can deal with them more effectively. So adding that layer of emotional granularity to our toolkit alongside body awareness, that's powerful stuff for boosting our emotional intelligence. Lastly, my third tip, taking responsibility for your emotions, which means you stop blaming other people, you stop blaming your past, or even your culture for how you feel. Navigating the waters of emotional intelligence involves understanding a couple of things. So first is the nuance between causation and correlation. See, it's easy to think that events or people's actions cause our feelings. But if you really examine what's happening at a scientific, neurological level, what's really happening is correlation, not causation. Just because you feel upset when someone says something doesn't mean that their words are the direct cause of your emotions. Once you get that distinction, then you can look at the notions of proximate cause and ultimate cause. See, proximate cause are the factors or situations that happen around the same time as our emotional responses. However, the ultimate cause of our emotions lies deeper rooted in our body and brain's conditioning over time. It encompasses everything from our genetic makeup to our life experiences. This is where the concept of responsibility versus blame or fault comes into play. Consider the analogy of growing up in a house with slanted floors, okay? The uneven floors might make it challenging to walk straight, and the furniture is always sliding from one end of the house to the other, but is it your fault that the furniture is sliding and that you can't walk straight? No, but would you be impacted? Of course. So now, as an adult, that's not your fault, but you are the only one that can do the work to grow and develop beyond that impact. See, it's exactly the same with our emotions. The patterns we've developed throughout our lives, how we react to certain situations or people, aren't your fault. You're not to blame. These are learned responses, often from trying to cope with our environments. But understanding and managing these responses is within your power. So when I say responsibility, I'm not saying you're to blame. This is never about blaming yourself or others for how you feel. Instead, taking responsibility, or said otherwise, taking ownership, is about giving yourself the power, empowering yourself to respond differently in the future. Knowing that while you can't control everything that happens to you, you can learn to control how you react. This shift in perspective isn't easy. It requires patience, practice, and a lot of self-compassion. But the rewards, greater emotional agility, deeper self-understanding, and more meaningful connection with others are well worth the effort. So remember, while you're not to blame for your emotional patterns, you can take responsibility for managing them. This is the heart of developing your emotional intelligence, owning your emotions, and in doing so, mastering the art of emotional well-being. Okay, so to wrap up, body-based meditation, naming your emotions, and taking responsibility for your emotions are my 3 favorite ways to concretely and simply practice developing emotional intelligence. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe and like and share your thoughts in the comments. Whether you agree or disagree or have something to add, I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day.